Welcome to episode 17 of the Air Hug Community Podcast. You're listening to the Air Hug Community Podcast. I'm your host, Judy Arizosa, and on this podcast, I bring you conversations and stories from guests and myself that inspire us to thrive on a higher level. We talk about things like relationships and habits for optimal health and how we see the world. Whether you are a mother or an other, the Air Hug community is here to help you realize that improving the lives of others will boomerang back to you exponentially. And remember, not to be too serious. Life is better with a daily dose of smiles and air hugs. Welcome everybody back to the Air Hug Community Podcast. I'm very excited about our guest today, and I know I say that every time, but I am really super excited for us today to talk with Dr. Jillian Teta. And Dr. Jillian Teta, correct me if I get this wrong, is an integrative physician?
I'm a naturopathic physician, yes.
A naturopathic physician.
Yes.
And she specializes in digestive issues?
Yes.
Okay, so Dr. Jillian, I'm going to let you take it from here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little bit of background, and then we'll dive into some fun topics.
All right, Judy, first, thank you so much for having me on. I'm also really excited, and it's super fun that you're very excited about what you do. So that is going to make it all the more fun for everybody. So I am a medically trained naturopathic physician. And when I moved to North Carolina in 2007, what started showing up were folks who had real digestive distress. And so by using some of the principles and techniques like from medical school and from naturopathic principles, began to work with people to just help improve their digestion. And then one thing sort of led to another, and I got a book deal and wrote a book, and then got on social media and have just sort of been doing this digestive thing ever since. And a lot of folks struggle with digestive distress. So there's always something to talk about.
There is always something to talk about. And by the way, I have read your book, and we will put a little reference to it in the show notes. But today, I'd like to ask you about the relationship between stress and digestion and sleep. And so I feel like this is, as you said when we were chatting just a minute ago, it's a great time to bring this up. So we are recording this in late November, and we're heading into, and it's 2020. So we already have baseline chronic stress, right? Based on the year, but now we're also going into what I call the stress season. So how do you want to start? What can you tell us?
Well, so the thing that's so interesting or not about stress is that stress is one of these words that is used so often, it almost means nothing at all, right? So I think what could be really interesting for us to do is to kind of break down what stress is and the relationship between the digestive system. I have been hearing from so many folks that in the last 6 months, the last 9 months, all of a sudden, they're getting reflux. They've never had reflux before. Now they're constipated. They never used to be constipated. They're having real bad sleep disruption. They wake up in the morning and they feel nauseous, or they feel like their food's not digesting. I'm hearing from more and more people that are struggling with stress-related digestive issues. And so I think it's important first to just normalize that and be yes, if you're listening in and sort of nodding your head, this is absolutely a thing that can happen. Your digestive function absolutely can be disturbed and perturbated by chronic stress. And now we have both chronic and acute stress, right? Because we have our sort of normal everyday baseline level of stress. Then we have the pandemic and everything that's going on with that and all of the social isolation. And now to your point, we're moving into this holiday season where it's going to look entirely different. And so now all these digestive symptoms are popping up. So let's talk first about how digestion happens normally. And to do that, we have to talk about something called the second brain. Probably your listeners have heard of the second brain, but what it is this vast neurological network, like a community of nerve cells that starts at the base of the esophagus, goes through the small intestine, the large intestine, all of the organs of digestion, and terminates at the rectum. And what it does is it manages and monitors all aspects of digestion. Okay, that's really important. So it knows how much, solid is in one particular section of the small intestine. It knows the pH of the entire gut, up and down. It knows how quickly or how slow your gut is moving, and it helps to coordinate that. So nature has done this because if all of the nerves responsible for digestion went through our spinal cord, we wouldn't be able to digest if we had an injury to the spinal cord. So nature has has created a solution by putting the actual second brain in the gut itself, right? So if we get hurt, our body is always going to be digesting. Now, here's where things get interesting. So we have the second brain. It's very important for digestion. It manages and monitors all aspects of it, but it's also in a two-way relationship with our central nervous system. And our central nervous system, as you know, that's like the commander in chief, right? That's the brain and the spinal cord. That is doing like extremely high level functioning of everything, including keeping an eye on digestion. So digestion can happen independently outside of the central nervous system. So I have to be real clear about that. It does happen independently of that, but it is in this two-way relationship where it takes feedback from the nervous system and it gives feedback to the nervous system, right? So they are constantly in this communication and exchanging information in this relationship, okay? What begins to happen during stress? All right, so I'm like trying to lay these pieces out. What begins to happen during stress is a part of the central nervous system is called the autonomic nervous system. And that has two branches. That has our sympathetic branch, which is like fight or flight or freeze, right? And then the other branch of that is parasympathetic or rest and digest. So our fight or flight branch and our rest and digest branch are supposed to be like partners where they're like in a dance, one goes this way, the other one goes this way. I often liken it to like a seesaw where there's like two little kids on the seesaw, okay? When we are exposed to stress, whether it's from like a long-term life situation, like whether that's physical or mental or emotional, or if we're feeling like more short-term stress, like, I don't know, from having to study for an exam or like an appointment you're kind of worried about. What happens is the sympathetic branch of the nervous system becomes activated, right? The fight or flight or freeze. That's the one we hear about, it releases cortisol. It puts you in this like fight mode. Blood moves out into the limbs and away from the organs, right? So when we are experiencing stress, that becomes more dominant. That branch becomes more dominant, which means that the parasympathetic branch, which is extremely important for not just digestion, but also like repair and renewal and immune function and neurological health and all of these things, that becomes less dominant or less of an equal player. Over time, and here's where, Judy, this is just so timely because now, as you said, we've been in this pandemic for 9 months or like 8 or 9 months. It's grinding on now for a really long time. So what I am noticing happening in folks is that sympathetic branch is over dominant. And because it's just been continually overactivated, because it's like we're not able to decompress from the stress. We're not able to go anywhere to like get away from the pandemic. A lot of the tools that we might be able to use aren't helping us because we don't have social outlets. Like we can't go to the gym, we can't go hang out with folks, like that type of thing. So where we're at is that seesaw again. Instead of two little kids being on the seesaw, it's like a chihuahua is sitting on one end and an elephant is sitting on the other. And it becomes like stuck. It becomes stuck on when you are in this chronically overstimulated, overactivated state.
How many of us are feeling stuck like an elephant right now?
No, I mean, probably at least 50%, honestly, like just based on what, just sort of like based on what I'm hearing and seeing. And that can change day to day too. So now with this sort of, this stuck elephant, so the technical term for that is sympathetic overdominance, or we also can call it in a more general term, dysautonomia. Dysautonomia just means like a dysfunction or a disruption in the autonomic nervous system. What then that does is part of that relationship, right? Between it's that two-way relationship, right? So when our nervous system is in this stuck state of sympathetic overdominance and dysautonomia, that has a negative feedback mechanism and effect onto the second brain. And it's not a good effect, as you can imagine, right? So it's like when this brain is all like stressed out, our brain and our stomach also begins to get more stressed out. From there, multiple things are possible in terms of like creating or manifesting symptoms. Something that often happens, I hear a lot about motility, like again, constipation or diarrhea, where people are either like, I wake up at 5 a.m. and like have to run to the bathroom and have diarrhea, even though I've been eating the exact same thing that I've been eating for the last 3 months, or they can't go, they slow down, or it's heartburn. With this motility, how fast the gut is moving, whether that lower esophageal sphincter at the base of the esophagus is staying opened or closed, that's all managed by the second brain. And so if it's dysfunctional, that means the lower esophageal sphincter can open when it shouldn't be open. You get reflux and heartburn. You might not be producing as many like digestive enzymes or stomach acid as robustly. That decreases your ability to digest, right? Giving you like kind of like nausea, feeling heavy, all of those things. Motility disruption can come from that second brain disruption because your second brain is so crucial for motility. So that is how stress is able to both directly and indirectly impact digestion. And where sleep comes in oh, heck yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking of traveling. I guess I wish I was traveling. We're not traveling now, but back to the time when we traveled. My personal experience in talking to a lot of people is like, again, you could be eating the same things, even like if I was bringing my food for like the airplane and whatever, my whole digestive pattern would change. I'm not going to go into details. But like every single time I get on an airplane. Yeah.
Constipation is very, very common with any type of travel, any type of like disruption out of the normal routine. So that's exquisitely common, and something that, if other listeners are like, oh yeah, that happens to me too. Simple magnesium biglycinate, the biglycinate form of magnesium is a fabulous thing to take like the night before you get on the plane. When you arrive at your destination, just helps things move regularly and gently. So that is kind of like a very small microcosm. That's like that's like one teeny slice of sort of what we're talking about here. Okay. Because that also feeds into like brain health and sleep. So when we're traveling, our brain literally knows that we're not in our environment. And so we tend to not sleep as well the first night that we travel outside of our homes. So you guys might like realize that, or like when you think about it, like you might have noticed that happens to you, where once you kind of settle in at your destination, things kind of work itself back out. Mm-hmm. But it's very common to have motility disruption with traveling, especially slowing things down.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I know that was a little bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to, yes.
No, it's a good tangent. It's an important one because it just, it demonstrates that point in a very discrete specific way. And then we can apply that, like that can be extrapolated to just sort of now imagine your brain, like your brain and nervous system, we kind of are like in this, well, we've been like traveling for the first day of travel for 9 months straight, you know, because of this pandemic and all the stress that is happening there. So one of the ways that we decompress from stress, and one of the ways that unfortunately stress negatively impacts us both, is through sleep. So it becomes this like really nasty sort of like, well, feed forward cycle, like, but sort of in the wrong direction, where deep sleep, and like, so not just deep sleep, but also sleep where we dream, like in the early morning, that is extremely important for balancing the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. Like it's just key. It's like a reset for our brain. It helps our brain clear out compounds that have built up during the day, specifically one called adenosine, like that only is released or removed when we sleep. And unfortunately, with chronic stress, again, as we all understand as humans, sleep is one of the first things to suffer. So some folks have issue falling asleep. Some people can fall asleep fine, but then like they're waking up at 2, at 3, at 4, at 5, or having poor sleep in the later portion of the day. And so once that begins to happen, once our sleep suffers, that in turn worsens and exacerbates that sympathetic overdominance that we were talking about before.
Back to the elephant.
So when you are back to the elephant. So when we are more underslept, we are more stressed out, like just period. And your listeners might have noticed, like on the days that we don't sleep good, you might notice that like food sits in your stomach longer, like you feel like you're not digesting it, or maybe you're having more gas and belching, or maybe you're having cravings for things that you don't normally crave. Maybe you're way hungrier than you normally are. That's because your nervous system hasn't had a chance to like reset, recalibrate, and renew itself. It's like we never get that fresh, clean slate. We never get to go back to like the kids on the seesaw, and we're just stuck. We're on that stuck seesaw.
Yeah. I can relate. Yeah. Especially the weird cravings and hunger. Ooh.
Yep. With our bodies, it's like we either have to sleep, and if we don't sleep, we have to eat because we need that nourishment. And if we're not able to kind of, again, like reset ourselves using sleep, we're going to have a higher like caloric need, and we're going to be craving like much like things that we're not maybe used to craving, or that we don't normally crave, or that aren't a part of our normal daily diet.
That I'm laughing because so I'm a new grandmother, and this weekend I was helping my daughter-in-law and son, and so I wanted to take the night shift because I wanted to be able to feed my granddaughter and bond, which was great. I loved it at the time. And then we got home last night. We also had to travel, so we got home from the long drive, and I was like, why am I craving pumpkin bread and pizza? You know?
Right. Yep. Yeah. Because because probably you're underslept. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a real relationship there. Yeah. And it really highlights the importance of sleep, and sleep as a decompression mechanism for chronic stress. Yeah. And also, again, like sleep suffers when we are chronically stressed. So it becomes this like, what's that? The Ouroboros, like the snake that's eating its tail. The snake that's eating its tail. Yeah. So everyone's got to sleep, basically. If you want to improve your digestion, or if you're experiencing like digestive distress from the pandemic, it's time to really double down on getting quality sleep. And I know everyone's schedules are so weird, right? Because like not everyone's like on the 9 to 5 thing. There's a lot of people working from home, right? So I feel like people's normal like sleep wake cycles are just sort of disrupted, because they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to stay on the internet until 1 a.m. and it doesn't matter. And you know, I have no like real routine, so whatever, but we do really have to double down on sleep.
Yeah. So speaking of routines with that, do you recommend, I know when I've talked to people, I've talked about, let's try to keep the routine. keep some sort of routine that's kind of in alignment with our normal rhythm. Oh.
Yes. So sleep-wake cycles, and this is really well established in the literature. Folks either tend to be night owls or morning people. Like everyone kind of knows if they're more of a night owl and more of a morning person. And it's extremely important to honor that both when you go to bed and get up by keeping similar sleep-wake cycle times, like within an hour or two of each other on the evening end and on the night end. So like staying up for hours and hours, like extra on the weekends, is actually horrible for sleep. It's actually better to sleep in than to try to stay up late. But absolutely having a sleep schedule, especially if you're having sleep disruption or if you're having digestive symptoms like related to stress and or sleep deprivation, you absolutely want to maintain your sleep, like your sleep wake times. Absolutely. I mean, and there's a couple other things you can do like fairly easily for sleep. I don't know if you want me to like
yes, please,
like cruise through those. And they sound so like a lot of them are going to sound really generic because it's kind of like this, it's kind of like we were talking about in the beginning, like stress means, it's used so much that it's like almost means nothing. It's the same with like, well, go to bed on time. Like it almost means nothing, but it means a lot, and these things work. We just have to actually do them, right? So keeping definitely a sleep-wake cycle that is within an hour or two. The next thing is not having stimulants like after noon, like 12. And this is a huge one because a lot of folks now are relying on stimulants because it helps deal with stress and it helps, everyone's exhausted. So everyone's like over caffeinated. Yeah. But caffeine, even if you're a fast metabolizer of caffeine can still take like 4 to 8 hours to clear your body. When it's not clearing your body, it is impacting your brain's ability to get all the structures in place, get everything all lined up for the brain to be able to generate excellent sleep. So caffeine like cuts that off. Even for folks, again, who are fast metabolizers or who feel like caffeine doesn't bother them, right? Because I know there's lots of folks in that category as well. But no stimulants like after noon, like no caffeine after noon. Stimulants also are things like alcohol. So alcohol is both a central nervous system stimulant and depressant. So a lot of times it can help us like fall asleep. It's actually important to know that it's not actually like falling asleep. It's more like a mild sedation. Like it's more like a mild anesthesia, what alcohol does to us. Like, I don't know if you're ever like put out, if you're getting like your wisdom teeth extracted, it's more like that than an actual sleep generation. Alcohol also takes several hours to clear itself from the body. And so for alcohol, I really recommend folks don't drink much past like 3 or 4. And I know that can also sound weird because it also sounds like I'm like a proponent of day drinking, which I guess maybe I am. If I'm saying this, I am, but you want that alcohol cleared out of your brain before you try to go to sleep, because alcohol, well, one of the byproducts of alcohol metabolism is called aldehyde. Aldehyde literally blocks the body from clearing out adenosine. And adenosine is one of those like things that builds up in the brain over the course of the day. So when we drink before bed, we are literally impairing our brain's ability to like clear itself and to generate sleep. And I know that caffeine and alcohol are like everybody's favorite drinks right now, but that is, that's sort of the rough reality of it. And then the other thing is, once the sun goes down, it's definitely time to swap into like blue light mode so a lot of devices now, like a lot of the smartphones, a lot of computers and laptops, when the sun sets, they go into blue light mode, which basically means they remove the blue light that they emit. So blue light is a highly stimulating light for our brains. It basically like tricks our brains into thinking like, oh, it's daytime, it's light time. Like it's not time to go to sleep, it's time to stay awake. And so by removing our exposure to the stimulation of blue light, we actually can help our brain get in a better place to generate sleep. Blue light comes from devices. It comes from televisions. It comes from screens, Kindles, tablets, all of that. So you can search on your device. A lot of them are called like night mode or sunset mode or like blue light mode. They're built in, at least they're built into the Apple products. Mm-hmm. If not, you can get an app and install it. And if not, you also can go on Amazon and get a pair of blue light blocking glasses, like for, I don't know, $10 or less.
Yeah, I've seen them.
They're really helpful for folks who maybe don't have the blue light blocking options on their devices, or who are who travel a lot and drive a lot at night. Can help just reduce all that glare and stimulation. So part of sleeping better, a lot of these recommendations are avoiding things that trash your sleep.
So I have a question about the alcohol, because you talked about the sedation effect of alcohol versus the sleep effect. Yep. So if a brain's being sedated, it's not, tell me the difference between sedation and sleep.
So you're not conscious, you are unconscious. Right? But you are not having healthy sleep. You're not having healthy sleep cycles. It's more like you're sedated into that. So if you took a brain scan of someone that just fell asleep naturally versus someone that drank themselves to sleep, their brains are doing two very different things. Sleep is a physiologically unique thing that happens in the body. And we conflate that with I passed out because I drank too much, or I don't know, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. It's similar with things like Ambien and a lot of the sleep medications. They don't actually generate deep, healthy, real sleep. They kind of are a mild anesthesia where they remove your consciousness, but they do not give you that deep restorative sleep.
Okay. So all the restoration things that happen don't.
Exactly. Which is why, in part, when you wake up, even if you didn't drink to excess or feel drunk, on those days where if you have a bunch of wine before bed and you wake up in the morning, most folks don't feel their best anyway, especially once you're over 25, 30, so there's those things. So we remove the things that can be overstimulating for us. And then you can add things in that help to create relaxation. And we can start that sort of in the bedroom, by making sure the bedroom is dark, right? That you don't have, you have a little grandbaby now, you're talking about, little night lights and things. Mm-hmm. A red night light is going to be way less stimulating for your brain, but you're still going to be able to see. And actually they're cool. You kind of feel you're in I don't know, it's kind of fun. I don't know, you're back in college or something, in the red lights or something like that, but they're really, really soothing. You can see and do everything, but they're not glaring and overstimulating. Bedroom nice and dark, maybe light blocking shades, no electronic lights shining in the background. You want the bedroom to be cool if you can. The body has to drop 3 degrees before it falls asleep. So having the bedroom nice and cool, yes. Taking a warm shower or a warm bath before bed will also help drop the core body temperature. And then the other thing that I tell folks in terms of bedroom stuff is you don't want a lot of clutter or busyness in the bedroom. You don't want unfinished projects, bills you have to pay, or stressful reports or those types of things. You want your sleeping area kind of neat and tidy and uncluttered. There's actually research to suggest that sleep is better with that as well. Sleeping in a less sort of chaotic, stimulating environment. So then those are things that we can add in to help sleep.
So nobody shouldn't have their work at home desk in the bedroom then, huh?
Oh no, and I know a lot of people do, right? Keone has one of these little lap things that he brings and just puts on his lap and just brings his computer all over the house. Staying up all night, working on your laptop in the bedroom is probably not a good idea.
All right, that's good to know.
It's probably not a good idea. Yeah.
So how about, I don't know too much about Kindles, but I tend to read a lot on electronic devices.
Yep.
Is it better to go back to paper, or are we okay with just finding that blue light setting?
I think it's fine to just find the blue light setting, or you can get, for other devices, it's an actual square filter that just pops on. So you can maybe get that for the Kindle. 'Cause I don't have a Kindle. I don't know what that looks like. Yeah.
No, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
So I think, I mean, I love paper books, like,
mhm.
cause I don't know, like that's my age, right? Like I grew up with paper books,
Yep.
but the Kindles and the phones and the tablets are super convenient, like for traveling and stuff. But I
Mhm.
don't think we need to utterly abandon them. I think if we just like stop the blue light stimulation, that would be great.
All right. Well, that's good to know. The
Yeah.
red light, I'd never heard of the red light
Hmm.
before. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get those red lights, I mean, online, like at a Lowe's, Lowe's or Home Depot type situation, Ace Hardware, you can find red light bulbs anywhere, or like Google night lights, red light night lights.
So let's say we're already in that state where we have the elephant and the chihuahua versus the
Yep.
kid.
Yep.
What can we do once we're already there? How do we
Yep.
get back to the balance?
Yep. So again, so like really like doubling down on sleep, right? So like sleep is going to be one of the major things. And then something else that I recommend incessantly is doing as much slow, gentle leisure walking as absolutely possible.
Ah, okay.
Like just walking in nature if possible, having no real agenda just besides strolling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of reveling in looking at the trees or the flowers or the plants, feeling the air on your skin, listening to the birds or the sounds around you, like looking at everything, really sort of like getting your sensory system involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
Because our sensory system is a major way, like it is the way that we perceive like stress and such. So making things soothing for your senses is another great way to like de-stress the gut and de-stress the brain. Like creating boundaries, like a lot of people have really sort of like lost a lot of their boundaries over this pandemic, and sort of
Yeah.
reestablishing those and communicating your needs. Like a lot of folks are not doing that. So,
No. Yeah.
and then just like, like all of our foundational things with health, right? Like making sure that you're staying hydrated, making sure that you're eating like your protein and vegetables every day, like not being too hard on yourself, like all of these things that sound like so like blasé, but are actually really important when we do them. Like this stuff works. We just have to do it.
Yeah.
We can't, a lot of times we get in our head and like, it's just easier to, again, like stay up all night and be on the internet and then like beat ourselves up in the morning, and we just get in these like funks and ruts. So it's like the way out is to just like make the decision that you're going to go to bed, you're going to do your walk, like you're going to drink your water. And then also like kind of like
happy hour is going to start early and end early.
Yep. Starting and ending earlier with happy hour. And then just like also giving yourself a little bit of grace. Like this is a hard time and we're going to be having hard times. Like it's okay to feel that way. Right. So like just a little like self-love and self-acceptance also.
Yeah.
And also just say like we all have different ways, different pathways that will all de-stress. For some people it's that social connection, for other people it's exercise, for other people it's like therapy. So it's highly individual, but those would be some suggestions that I would tackle right out of the gate.
Yeah. Which is interesting because our gym currently is open. We're allowed to be open in New York, at least this week.
Yep.
You never know what's going to happen next week with the cases. But during the election, one of the big things is I had a big sign and I said, we cannot have political talk during workout because most people come here to de-stress and we can't get agitated. And people were very respectful of that. And actually a lot of people thanked me for that because I just thought, you know what, this is why you're here. And I love that you want to have, engaging discussion, but do it after class or somewhere else.
You're like, just for right now, we're not going to talk about that.
Just for right now, this is not the place because it's, it's meant to, our workouts are meant to de-stress. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, physical movement absolutely helps to de-stress.
So how about when we're out walking leisurely, can we bring our dogs?
Oh yeah. I highly recommend it. Unless your dogs are so annoying to walk that they create stress, that becomes stressful to walk them. But yeah, no, I often walk with my dog. We try to walk every single day. It just has become a part of our daily routine. Mm-hmm. And again, if folks like follow me or have seen any of my education or anything like that, or like bought any of my programs, in everything, I always talk about the leisure walk.
Leisure walk. And on Instagram, your stories very often have you walking
Yes.
outside.
Yes, I often story me and Bing Bing walking the neighborhood.
Wow, this has been super, super helpful. First of all, or next of all, I guess I could say, is where can people find you?
Oh, okay. So I am on Instagram. My handle is Jillian Teta. And then I have a website called jillianteta.com, www.jillianteta.com. And on my website, there's blogs, there's free educational programs, there's tons of like free resources, information. All of my links to social media are there. The link to my book is there.
Oh yeah, the link.
A little bit about me is there. And then also I'm on Instagram, and on Instagram, I have a link to my website. So if you go to one of those two places, you'll find me. If you go to Instagram or if you go to jillianteta.com, I'm there. I am there.
Excellent. Well, this has been super helpful. So I've been wanting to actually talk about sleep for the longest time and to get someone in who could help us really understand it. And I love understanding it from the effects it has on digestion. So Thank you so very much. This has been super, super helpful, folks. Check out Jillian, Dr. Jillian on Instagram. I'm a huge fan and follower. Check out her book. Also huge fan. I've read it. I highly recommend it. And she also has some free programs, some of which I've done, that you can access on her website. So thank you so much.
Oh, Judy, thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. We'll talk soon. Thank you for listening to the Air Hug Community Podcast. Wow, this has been such an informative episode. And boy, I think we're all going to pay more attention to our sleep quality. So for all the information that was mentioned here, you can check out the show notes and check back every Tuesday for new episodes of the Air Hug Community Podcast. Please take a look on Apple iTunes and download this episode, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. It means so much to keep this podcast going so we can bring awesome guests to you week after week.